to do. So the paper is item number 8, and I'm assuming that Andrew would like to move the recommendation. We've got staff coming to the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
You'd like to move it?
Yes.
Yes, and seconded by Pauline. And we'll open that up for questions for staff.
It's really just for clarification, and it is in the agreement, but my understanding from the agreement in terms of is it the Jetty Trust, that they transferred it from council for $1, and then in the future that in fact it would come back to council for $1 as well.
Correct.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
And I mean, just to pick up Yanni's point, is there sufficient in terms of the agreement that the engagement with mana whenua is taken care of?
Yes, the Trust intends to undertake further community consultation once we get into the detailed design stage, so that will include the local runanga.
So is it possible to make that explicit so that, because in the report on page 58 and on 59, in fact both of the options raise that as a potential issue, that that we've got an iwi management plan as well that identifies too many coastal structures in the harbour as an issue. So, you know, I'd just like to have some formality around the fact that A, the local iwi have been talked with and are supportive of this project, and B, that there will be ongoing engagement, involvement with them in the design.
It would be a different issue if it was a new structure, additional structure. They clearly are.
Yeah, perhaps this could be in the conditions to the funding, as part of that we get something from the runanga in writing in support.
Okay. I mean, I'm not on the group that's been talking with the runanga. I don't know if others who are involved in that feel that there's a need to make reference to it. What I do know is that I was on the council that received the iwi management plan, and the talk at the time was, you know, it's one thing to say something, it's another to do, and so there were a number of kind of things that needed to be done. So I'm really supportive of this, and I think it's great that apparently those conversations have already been had, but nowhere in this report does it reference that, which I think it would be good to just get some more formality around it.
Maybe I can comment. I mean, we've heard already that there's been a level of contact that I think we can be comfortable with between the Jetty Trust and the Ngāti Wheke runanga, and I've got no doubt that that would continue. There's going to be a meeting in around about a month's time in Governor's Bay, which is an engagement meeting with the whole community, and certainly I know it's the intention of the Trust to engage with runanga, and of course why wouldn't they? I'm reasonably confident, as somebody who's been reasonably close to this process right the way through, that those relationships are in a good space and that they will happen. I mean, the nature of the way we do things around Littleton Harbour is that people talk to each other and relationships are respected anyway. As someone close to the project, I'm not really seeing a need to formalise that in our own resolution. I think the suggestion that a condition of the funding be subject to, and I think it's community consultation and support from the community in general, rather than just the treaty relationship with Ngāti Wheke and the special relationship that we have there. But I've got no doubt that all of those relationships are in a good space, and that there's a good communications and engagement plan moving forward between the Trust and the wider community, including runanga, which would allow all of those concerns that you've got, Yanni, to be addressed.
I mean, I still have a different point of view. As we've seen this term of council, historic sort of informal agreements and support can change over time. So my preference is to have something formally recorded, and particularly, I mean, again, like if this is contrary to the iwi management plan, or if it's iwi management plan supportive, or if there's a process to have had that resolved. But maybe staff, when they enter into the contract, can just take those comments on board. Is that a better way of doing it, so that they can reflect on maybe what we just need? Because it sounds like everyone's supportive, which is great, but I think it is important to have some reference in writing to it.
So, yeah, noting, so 3 could have the words added to it, noting the provisions of the iwi management plan.
Yeah, and support of Te Hapu o Ngāti Wheke.
I think it's one sentence. Add it to that end of that sentence. And what was the other bit about the support?
That reference there,
Number?
the iwi management plan would identify mana whenua for the purposes of engaging on this. So do you need to actually spell out Te Hapu o Ngāti Wheke in there, Rapaki?
Well, it's interesting because the comment is that there's no impact on mana whenua, but that there is a takiwa which is specifically related to Rapaki.
Yes, but there is an existing jetty and it's being replaced with another jetty. You know, I really don't want to hold this up. I just noting the provisions of the iwi management plan, in my view, sends the signal to the community, and they're nodding at the back of the room. So I think that's sufficient to take on board those concerns.
Okay.
Thank you. Right. Okay. So is there any discussion?
No.
Any discussion?
I've already, probably in the wrong place in the debate, said everything I needed to say.
Pauline.
Endorse the project, and my mind comes back to the Edgeware Pool group that are embarking on the same journey, and I just want to congratulate all communities and people in the communities who get off their bums and actually take ownership and get energetic and get passionate about the things that they have, and also valuing them more and helping us all out. So it's a fantastic project, and I really wish them all the success, and we will be walking alongside them, and Ngāi Tahu are our partners, so they'll walk alongside them as well.
Yeah. No, I was going to make a comment about there are a wealth of professionals living in the Governor's Bay area who have already contributed. I showed a video of the survey that was done by the local community at the International Federation of Surveyors Working Week here in Christchurch, a large international conference held here, and it was just such a great example of using the community assets to really, you know, the people who live in the community to actually contribute to the whole process, and it was great. So yeah, well done and fantastic, and yeah, I really can't say any more than that. So I'll put the motion. All those.
Sorry, we just need to address question 1.
First recommendation.
Obviously,
the council has allocated $535,000 towards this project, which won't go very far. And so we just need to be clear about what council's intentions are with that funding, the expectations of the community raising the remaining funds needed, if the council intends to grant that funding to the community, any conditions attached to that. That's what we need some direction on.
So what's the recommendation?
That you clarify your intent and conditions for
No,
the funding.
but to clarify intent requires an option to be in front of us to consider. I just assumed, that clarifying the intent was just in relation to confirming that amount is on budget for this proposal. The mechanism, we wouldn't make it on a piece of paper like this.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest the recommendation around how that funding transfers, when it transfers, what the conditions for transfer of the funding would be and so on, would be a further consideration. But that needs to be done in partnership with the trust, because it's what works for council and it's what works for the trust in terms of what the project plan and the timeline and the obligations look like. And that probably would then, I imagine, result, and I don't know whether this aligns with the way that staff see this, would result in a further report coming back around, I mean, the intention was always that it would be match funding, so that we would we would signal a contribution that then allowed the community, that allowed the trust to go and do what they were able to do, needed to do in order to match that. In some ways, we need to have a look at the trust project plan to see where that lands with them, to see what we need to do in terms of how that funding is transferred, when in the project it occurs and so on. But it needs to be a conversation between both parties to know that whatever we're proposing works for the project. I think it would be wrong for us to make a decision today that either, for example, we transfer all of the funds immediately, will that bring the desired outcomes for council, or we transfer the funding at the end when the trust have raised all the remaining money. That may not work for the trust. So I think we need further information to be able to make that decision. That further information would inevitably come out of a conversation with the trust. I'm certainly happy to be a part of that conversation to whatever extent is required to lead that to a good outcome.
Yeah.
A payment process and a timeline, so they will know the project, they will know when they will need that money, and so we're there to assist it. We've already agreed to the amount, but forming a trust allows them to go to elsewhere as well, so not just rely on the council. That's the whole principle of the whole thing, isn't it? It gives them freedom, and we're purely supporting them. So the payment timeline should be done with regards to their needs, not ours, so to speak.
So actually we should take out item 1, that, because I misunderstood that. I thought it was a future focused recommendation. So we'll put a new 3 at the bottom and say, request staff to provide advice on the mechanism for allocating the $535,000 in the 2018-19 financial year towards the Governor's Bay Jetty renewal, so that you're providing advice back to us about the advice on the. I've just taken the words out of here. So request staff to provide advice on the preferred mechanism for allocating towards the Governor Bay Jetty renewal to be undertaken by the Governor's Bay Restoration Trust. Yeah, and then that's you're providing advice back to it'll be the next council, and that's what I assumed that one meant, that we weren't going to, absent advice, make a decision about the best way to do this, but we're confirming our commitment to the $535,000 that's in the budget for the 28-19 financial year, and obviously any change to that would have to come through an annual plan recommendation. Is that all right?
Yep, that works.
Cool. Excellent. So now I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you.